Hello, in this video we're going to play a game called Hunt the Wumpus. I love Hunt the Wumpus. It is an absolute classic. It's a combination adventure strategy game, very old, one of the first computer games many people played. I love it so much, in fact, that I cloned it and made my own cartridge version of it for the Radio Shack color computer, which if you go to the right places, you can maybe find that online or at a computer show. The Wumpus, let's pop over to the slide deck. Hunt the Wumpus was written in 1973 by a really interesting guy named Gregory Yob. Now, if you've ever been on Discord and you've noticed that their logo is this little pig, the pig's name is Wumpus. It's an homage to Hunt the Wumpus. If you've ever played Magic the Gathering, you might have run across several of the Wumpus cards that are out there. Again, obviously a reference to Gregory Yob's masterwork, masterful early adventure strategy game. This game is important because it really is the origin story for all of the adventure games, all the MMORPGs out there. It really is the grandfather of all adventure games, and rightfully deserves to be its place up there in the pantheon of great early games. Gregory Yob, interesting guy. You can go read about him on Wikipedia as well as I can. Interesting thing about him apparently is that after he died, his head was removed and put in cryogenic freeze, Futurama style. So I'm sure there's a video game plot there. Now, he had played many of the early games that were available, and I kind of call them games generously. Computer games were not really very interesting affairs back in the early 70s. There was a lot of find things on the grid, or the two-dimensional grid, or the three-dimensional grid. Treasure hunt on a grid. Find the monsters on the grid. Explore the grid. Why grids? Because the early programming languages, BASIC, Fortran, they had support for managing grid-like data structures, because those are the kind of things that you use for spreadsheets or tables, data tables, for charts. So that's just something that it was a useful feature to have. Early programming languages had it, and people looking to make games took advantage of that. So there's a lot of grids out there. And he thought, well, maybe we could use another shape. And he happened to like dodecahedrons, dodecahedral kites. And he thought, well, maybe I'll use that shape and use that as the basis for my game. So this game was published in Popular Computing in 1975, and the source code was available through magazines, and you could type this game in at home and save it to a cassette, and then you could play it whenever you wanted. I played it myself as a kid, probably on an Apple II, although I don't quite remember, although I'm pretty sure it was the Apple II version. This all raises an interesting question, because as I will tell you over and over and over again, the computer as a piece of consumer electronic gear was not available prior to 1977. 1977 is the first year we get the 1977 trinity of the Apple II, the Commodore PET, and the TRS-80 Model 1. Before that, you have to build your kit from a computer if you have one at all. And so what do computers look like? If you want to make a game in 1973, what does your computer look like? Well, let's investigate here. Here's a picture from Vintage Computer Fest. There's a friend of mine, Sark, who's a genius with hardware. You give him anything and he can fix it and have it up and running in very short order. That thing that he is on is a terminal. It looks like a computer, but it's not. It is really just a way of interacting with a computer somewhere else. It has obviously a keyboard and a monitor, and the characters that you type in are sent in serial fashion over to a computer. The computer sends the response back, and that is displayed on the monitor. So there's no processing power in there, really. It's just a way of sending data to a computer somewhere else that can do the processing. And many terminals, like at a big university or corporation, there'd be many terminals hooked up to a single computer, and everybody would be getting a small slice of that mainframe, big thing, computer's resources. Yes, the big thing. That's the technical term for it. What does one of those big honking computers look like? Well, let's look at another one of my colleagues or associates. This is Mouse. He works for an IT department at a school in New Jersey. He trucked that out to Chicago all the way from New Jersey. So that massive machine there is kind of what one of these terminals would be, or many of these terminals would be plugged into. And that thing that he's holding on to there, that kind of black door, that dark door, that's actually, if you look under that closely, you'll see that there's big reel-to-reel cassette or reel-to-reel magnetic tapes in there. So that was how that computer stored its programs, on giant magnetic tapes, like you'd see in the old James Bond movies or something. So that's the computing landscape of the early 1970s. We're talking about mainframe computers that cost millions of dollars, and people are interacting with them through terminals. Here is a screenshot of this game. It's an adventure game. It's a logic game. It's really the ancestor of all the adventure games ever written. This is the first thing everybody goes back to and says, "Oh yeah, that's really the kind of the core, the kernel, the starting point for all the adventure games." And we'll play that, and you can come to your own conclusion whether you agree or disagree. But I think that Hunt the Wumpus is definitely that's where the adventure game begins. And all the MMORPGs, they're all just kind of ancestors or descendants, very far descendants of Hunt the Wumpus. So this game would put you in a location. You would be hooked up to other locations, or you'd have the option to go to other locations, and you could either move or shoot. And I'll explain the rules here in a second, why you'd want to move, why you'd want to shoot. But the idea is that you have text-based interaction with the game. Many of these early games, the systems just did not support graphics, so any game had to be text-based, and Hunt the Wumpus was text-based, although later versions have certainly there have been many excellent high-quality graphic-based Hunt the Wumpus games. So let's keep going here and take a look at the map where the game is played. If you remember, I mentioned the dodecahedron. So the game is played in a network of rooms or caves. And a room is actually a cave term, right? Speleologists or cavers would call that, a cavern. They call it a room. So there's a series of rooms. Every room is hooked up to 3 other rooms, and that forms a world that you can walk around in. You can go from room 1 to 2 to 10, to 9 to 18 to 17. You can walk around the room or walk around the world that way. There's a system of rooms, caves, caverns that you can explore, and notice that we're not on a grid, we're on a dodecahedron, which is a much more interesting shape. All right, so let's get down to the rules of this game. What are we hunting? What makes this game fun? What makes it challenging? What makes it elegant? So somewhere in this network of caves is a monster called the Wumpus, and we have 1 arrow, and we have to track this monster down and fire an arrow into its cave. If we were foolish or unfortunate enough to actually walk into the cave with the Wumpus, it would kill us and eat us. We'd be dead. So that's one way to lose the game. We have to find out where the Wumpus is and fire an arrow into that cave. What else we got? But it's not so easy. The game makes this difficult for us. There are 2 pits. If we enter a cave or a room that has a pit, we die. Some games, they're acid pits, bottomless pits. I think of them as bottomless pits. We fall forever and eventually die. We fall to our death in a bottomless pit. So we have to avoid those pits. There are also bats, just like there. Oh no, this is Hunt the Wumpus. There are 2 caves that have giant bats, vampire bats, super bats. It kind of varies from version to version. If you enter a cave that has bats, the bats will fly you to another cave. This cave could have nothing in it, could be totally safe, or it could contain a pit, or a Wumpus, or even another bat, and it would fly you somewhere else. But the story here, the danger here, is that bat could fly you and somewhere else and drop you off there, and then that new location would contain a hazard that would kill you. So we have to generally avoid we have to avoid the pits. We have to avoid the bats, and we have to figure out where the Wumpus is. Well, how do you do that? Well, okay. So the game will tell you what's around you, but not specifically what cave it's in. So if you're next to bats, it will tell you that you hear bats nearby. It will not tell you hear bats in cave 5. That would be too specific, right? So it'll say you hear bats nearby. That means there could be bats in one of the caves next to you, or there could be bats in both of the caves next to you, because remember, there are 2 bats. And it works the same with the pits. So what we have to do here is use process of elimination to figure out where everything is. And here are the clues. If we're next to a pit, the game will tell us that we feel a draft from a pit nearby. If we're next to bats, we will hear squeaking from the bats nearby, or rustling from the bats nearby. And if we're next to the Wumpus, we'll smell the stench of the Wumpus. So those are the clues that tell us what's around us. What we do is get to the cave next to the Wumpus and fire an arrow into it, and that's how we win the game. So using process of elimination, we can figure out where everything is and find out what cave the Wumpus is and fire an arrow into it. Oh, and don't let me, forget to mention that you only have one arrow, and if you miss, the startled Wumpus will kill you. So it's a high stakes game. One of the theories about games and game design is that a game is a meaningful series of decisions. And if you guess wrong and you die as a result of that poor decision, that decision really does become a bit more meaningful and make the tension of the game a little bit I don't know, heightened. So that's the design of the game here. So we've got 2 bats, 2 pits, and a Wumpus, 20 rooms. We can move or shoot. All right, so I'll get back to that later. Let's pop over to the Wumpus, and we'll play through it. And I've got a map here. The way I like to play this is with a paper map, and I like to keep track of where I am. So right now I'm running in a CPM emulator. CPM is a really old operating system, and I've written my own version of Hunt the Wumpus, and for CPM, and we can play that here. So let me type Wumpus to start up the game, and it says, welcome to Hunt the Wumpus, CPM version by Evan Wright, 2017. Would you like instructions? I'm going to say no, because we know the instructions. And then it tells us that the pits are forming and the bats are sneaking into the caves. And now we're in room 19. So now, how do we know where we are? Well, let's pop over to our webcam here, our document camera. And well, you can see that we're in 19, and we don't hear any bats, and we don't feel a draft, and we don't smell the Wumpus. So that means that there's nothing around us. So let's go to our document camera here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle room 19. I know room 19 is safe, and I know 11 is safe, and I know 18 is safe, and I know 20 is safe. So these are all safe. They're all safe. Safe, safe, safe. There we go. So I know I know because of the environmental clues that those locations are safe. So let me pop back to CPM here, and let me move. Let me try to move into room 18 and see what that does for us. So I'll say move, which room, and I'll say 18, and hit enter. Now I'm in room 18. Passages lead to 9, 17, and 19. And again, there's no hazards listed here. There are no, stupid phone, go away. There are no hazards listed here. So 9, 17, and 19 must all be safe. So let's go back to the document camera. And 9, 17, and 19 are all safe. And we've already been to 19. So I'm going to write that that's safe. I'm going to write that that's safe. So you can see this is a lot like Minesweeper if you've ever played that game. So now let's move somewhere else. So we are in room, what room are we in? We're in 18 right now. Let's go back to our map. Let's move into room, I don't know, let's move into room 17 and see what happens. So let's move 17. And again, there's nothing here. So we're in 17, so 7 and 16 are safe. So that inner ring is safe, and is room 7. So let's go into room 7. Or wait, we're in room, this is where I get messed up and die. Okay, so we're in 17. Let's go to room 7. Move 7. And again, nothing here, but we now know that 6 and 8 and 17 are safe. So if I pop over to my document camera, you'll see I've now circled 6 and 8 are safe. And now let's go back to CPM there. So let's move to room 6. Move 6. Okay. Now it's just, okay, a draft and a Wumpus. All right, let's go back to our map and take stock of what we know. Room 6 has a draft and a Wumpus. So let's think about this. Have we been to room 16? I don't know. So there's, in room 5, there's a Wumpus or a pit. And in room 15, there's a Wumpus or a pit. And I'm just going to write W or P for Wumpus or pit. And the answer is we really don't know. So what I would do is let's go backtrack to, let's try to get on the, let's backtrack and try to go around. We'll try to isolate rooms 5 and rooms 15, and we'll just see what we find there. So let's go to room 16, which we know is safe, and see what hazards show up there. So let's go backtrack here. I'm going to go back to the game. I want to go to 7, 17, and 16. Move 7, move 17, move 16. I smell a Wumpus. Okay, so let's pop over to our map again. So now we've isolated. We know that if we smell the Wumpus from room 16 and we smell the Wumpus from room 6, then we know that the Wumpus must be here in room 15. And there was no mention of a draft in room 16. So the Wumpus is here, and the pit must be there. So now we know where the Wumpus is. And just to test this out, we could also go around to room 20, 13, and 14. We could try to get to this from the other side, just to beat the point home. Let's do that. Let's move to room 20. And there's nothing there. We know room 13 is safe. So room 13 is safe. Let's go there. Move 13. And where are we now? We're in room 13, and the adjacent rooms are safe. So 14 and 12 are safe. I'll mark those. And let's move into room 14. I smell a Wumpus. So now we're here. So we've been to all 3 of these rooms, and in all 3 of those rooms, we have smelled the Wumpus. So we've triangulated where the Wumpus is. So now let me fire an arrow into that cave. I will say shoot, and which room do I want to shoot into? I will say 15. Swoosh, thwack. A deafening roar fills the caverns as the Wumpus falls dead. Congratulations, you have killed the Wumpus. Player 1, Wumpus 0. Play again, and I will say no. So there we go. That is how to hunt the Wumpus. And you can see at the end we end up with a map that's nice and marked up. And we didn't even run into the bats or the pits, so they must have been somewhere else. So the whole thing is randomly chosen, when the game starts, and the layout is different every time. Although the placement of the hazards and the Wumpus, those are all random, but the layout is fixed. All right, so what we've got here is a really interesting early game. It makes a very good use of the limited computing capabilities of early systems. It creates a lot of atmosphere, the tension, the description, knowing that you have the bats and the Wumpus. It really kind of, if you have any imagination at all, I think this game is very, it's kind of captivating or engrossing. And I like the deductive reasoning, the process of elimination, logic angle to the game that's very much like Minesweeper. So I really like this game. And then if you like this game, you can play it too. There's all sorts of versions for Android, iOS. It's out there on the web. And if you have a Raspberry Pi or you work in a Linux environment, let's pop over to this slide. If you have to install the BSD Games package. Just if you have a Raspberry Pi, sudo apt-get install BSD Games. That will download lots of these old text terminal games for you, including Wump, which is the BSD version of Wumpus. So it's a very easy game to get. And play and fun. I'm sure it's out there on the web too. Now, from a game design perspective, this is where I know the answer to all this. But if you were going to take this game, if somebody gave this to you and said, you know what, we've got to make this game better so we can sell it or mass market this thing or get this thing on computer store shelves, think about what improvements you would make to this game. What would you change to this game to make the experience maybe bigger, more engrossing, more challenging, maybe possibly add more replay value to it, without resorting to the sledgehammer of graphics. So without saying, oh, we'd add graphics and sound, what would you do to this game to make it a bigger game? Let's pop back over to that webcam. Why can't I do that? It's not letting me pop over. All right, well, that's okay. But imagine if that network of rooms. How could we change that? How can we change this game to make it more challenging? And then we'll see what arc history actually takes, and we'll test whether you're right or not. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed Hunting the Wumpus. It's a great game. I love it. It's one of my go-to programming exercises. I've programmed versions of it for, I don't know, half a dozen different platforms. I don't know, what can I say? It's a great game. So I hope you enjoyed it, and think hard about what you do to improve it.